On this channel, I've already discussed what happens in staves 1, 2 and 3 of Charles Dickens's novella, A Christmas Carol. So I guess that means it's time for us to think about stave 4? So what does happen in stave 4 of A Christmas Carol? Let's find out. What's going on, Revision Squad? It's me, Liam, aka Mr. Knight, aka DystopiaJunkie, and as you can see, I'll be summarising stave 4 from Charles Dickens's novella A Christmas Carol in this video. I hope it helps you to understand what's going on in this part of the story, because knowing the plot of your GCSE set texts underpins exam success, and that's why you're here, right? You might find it useful to grab a pen and some paper and make some notes as you watch this video, as that way you will strengthen your memory of what happens in this part of the story. So stave 4 begins with the hooded phantom approaching Scrooge. Its entire being is enshrouded in gloom and mystery, for it does not speak to Scrooge and only communicates by pointing to various places or things. Understandably, Scrooge is visibly scared of this entity. His legs tremble. Now the spirit shows Scrooge the sights of the city in this future. They overhear some businessmen, some rich capitalists, talking about a man who has recently died. What is interesting is that they are less concerned about the emotional side of this than they are about the financial side. They ask where his vast wealth has gone, comment that the funeral is likely to be cheap, and one person even suggests that he will only attend the funeral if a lunch is provided. He'll only go if he gets something for free out of it. Now during this, Scrooge wonders who exactly these people might be talking about, but he does not have long to think about this, as the spirit shows him another conversation in a much poorer part of town. Here, a charwoman, which is just an old way of saying cleaner, a laundress and an undertaker meet at Old Joe's shop to sell off the goods that they have stolen from the dead man. As they talk about the deceased, it is apparent that they have no respect for him, as if stealing from him wasn't bad enough. Instead, they're only interested in what they can gain from his death. Now, I don't know about you, but I think this man must have been pretty horrid to have been so intensely disliked and disrespected like this in death. Now, when the conversation at Old Joe's comes to a close, Scrooge remarks that the case of this unhappy man might be his own. The word might is interesting here. Scrooge isn't suggesting that the dead person they are talking about is actually himself. He doesn't believe that he is dead in his future, not yet at least. And instead, I think he is remarking that when he does die, people are likely to steal from him and try to profit from his death, showing that Scrooge is, to an extent, aware of his poor reputation. Anyway, as if trying to correct Scrooge, the spirit shows him the bed where the dead man lies. Now this dead person's face is covered, and so his identity is a mystery. Despite the spirit's invitation to remove the cover from the head and identify the dead person, Scrooge cannot bring himself to do it. Instead, Scrooge asks the spirit to show him any person in the town who feels emotion caused by this man's death. And so the spirit complies. Scrooge is teleported to a family home in which there is a mother and her children. The woman's husband comes home, and we can see on his face that he has had a really hard life, for it is careworn and depressed despite his youth. And yet at this moment in time, this man seems exceptionally happy. The husband explains to his wife that the man they owed money to has died. This doesn't mean that their debt has been written off though. Instead, it has just been transferred to somebody else. Now this is still a cause for celebration though, as the transference of debt will give the couple more time to get the money that they owe, and the husband remarks that their new creditor cannot be as harsh as their last one anyway, so they might even get extra time because of that too. Perhaps not quite seeing what he hoped for. I think Scrooge really wanted to see someone who is sad about this dead man dying rather than happiness at it. Scrooge asks to see some tenderness connected with a death. Scrooge, you've got to be careful what you wish for. Because you see, he has been teleported now to the Cratchit household. Inside the house it is quiet and the atmosphere is incredibly sad. It becomes apparent in the family's dialogue that Tiny Tim has died. His death has affected them all, but perhaps none more so than Bob, who walks a little slower on his walk home these days. Right on cue, Bob comes home and tells the family that he has selected a nice green plot for Tiny Tim to be buried in, and that he will visit it on Sundays. He breaks out crying and goes upstairs to sit next to his son's body for a while. Now, despite their loss, it is still clear that the remaining Cratchits still love each other dearly. After seeing that, Scrooge asks the spirit about the identity of the dead man that he saw. As if in response, the spirit takes Scrooge to a location that is close to his house. Curious, Scrooge peeps in through the windows of his home and notices that it does not look like his house anymore. It seems like someone else is living there now. During all of this, the spirit is pointing elsewhere, specifically to a churchyard. It takes Scrooge there, and we can see that it is overgrown with grass and weeds and is generally uncared for. Whoever is buried there must not have many visitors. The spirit points Scrooge to a particular grave, but before looking at it, Scrooge asks if this future is set in stone, destined to happen, or if it only contains possibilities, things that might happen, but also might not. The spirit does not answer, and just continues to point. Scrooge then asserts that people are capable of change, and that if people change their actions, they can change their futures too. The spirit does not move. It points to the grave. Scrooge reads it and discovers that the grave is his own. Utterly petrified, Scrooge promises to the spirit that he will honour Christmas all year round, and that he will learn from the lessons that the spirits have taught him. And at this, the spirit disappears, becoming nothing more than Scrooge's bedpost. And that is what happens in Stave 4. Hopefully that gives you a solid understanding of what happens in this part of the story, which should help you to discuss and analyse it. If you have made it this far, please do remember to like, comment and subscribe to my channel if you haven't done so already. As ever, I hope that you do have an awesome rest of the day, and if you are revising, please do take frequent short breaks. As a burned out student is not a happy or successful student, which is what I think you deserve to be. So there we go, in Stave 4 of A Christmas Carol, Scrooge meets the ghost of Christmas yet to come, a spectral, haunting figure that shows him a dark and bleak and gloomy future in which, ultimately, Scrooge is dead, buried and uncared for. Now, does that trigger a permanent change in him? I guess we'll only find out in Stave 5.